Welcome to the Triangle Association of Freelancers March 2021 meeting. I am Rita Lewis. I'm going to be your Zoom host tonight. We are delighted to have Christy Murphy as a guest. There she is. Don Bond, our illustrious founder, will be facilitating the discussion with Christy. So let me introduce Don. Don.
Thank you, Rita, and welcome everybody. It's so good to have you join us this evening. This is going to be a really lighthearted, fun, very casual meeting tonight because our guest, Christy Murphy, is someone that I've known for a really long time. We were trying to figure out this evening how long we've known each other and realized is it more than 26 years when we were both still living in Florida. And I just adore Christy, and I was really happy when she agreed to join us this evening. The reason I asked her to be with us tonight is because she's done pretty well self-publishing cozy mysteries and other novels on Amazon. And so I wanted to talk with her this evening about that journey for her, how she does it, some tips that she might have for both publication and for marketing, and some other issues as well. So let's give a big round of applause, a welcome to Christy Murphy. I'm going to read Christy's bio for her. Christy Murphy's work has appeared in award-winning publications such as Cat Fancy, the Miami Herald, Fort Lauderdale Sun-Sentinel, and Pulp magazine. As a comedian, she has been on television and radio shows, including CNN's Showbiz Today, Australia's 7 News, and CBS News. The Los Angeles Times called her comedy show, quote, a kinder, gentler, more thoughtful comedy night. And it was named both LA Weekly's Pick of the Week and Best of Los Angeles. The heroine of her mystery series, Mom and Christy's Cozy Mysteries, is inspired by her mom, who really is as smart as her fictional counterpart. Her upcoming series featuring Eddie Harlow is based on her time working with a private investigation firm in Glendale, California. Yes, there was whiskey in the office, and no, she didn't carry a gun. She has also written the urban fantasy time travel novel, The Secret Truth of Time, as C.M. Murphy, and writes steamy romances under the pen name Pia Sparks. So Christy, I back in the day when you and I first started to know each other, you were an aspiring comic, an aspiring writer as well. And here we are now with you and a lot of published books under your belt. So I'd like to start by asking you to kind of tell us about your journey from there to here. What brought you to the point where you are today?
Well, I went into comedy because I worked, I was always writing since I was a kid, but one of the things that I didn't like was the query process of getting your work published. Like the only successful querying process that I ever had done was the one that you queried on our behalf to get into Cat Fancy. Like I've never actually written a letter and gotten it into the mail and then followed through on that because it's never been, so everything I've ever been published has been somebody offering me something or something I published on my own. And because that process just, I don't know, I think I have this fear of being rejected, or it just seems like a lot of work to just get work that you're really good at. That's what I think TAF is really awesome for, is for people to get into the nitty gritty of like submitting. But so for me, I went into stand-up comedy because when I won a journalism scholarship, you had to write a bunch of words, and I procrastinated so long that if you wrote the humor column, you didn't have to interview anybody or go anywhere. There was no fact checking. You just got to write, and you could write it late at night. And then I won for best humor writer for Florida. And I saw Jake Johansson on Letterman, and I thought, oh my God, I'd love to be a comedian. And that's about 2 years after that is when you and I met. And then the internet came along, and blogging and the ability to be immediate with what you wrote. Like that's what I loved about comedy, is you could write something today and then just deliver it to an audience without anybody in between. And when blogging came out, I did my thank you site, and I made, a very good living off of that when blogging was hot. And then self-publishing came along, and it was one of those deals where I didn't have to ask permission. And I love that autonomy. Even when I was in college with the journalism program, I would I started and put out the literary magazine that we had. It was the first one we did and was the last one because I left and they didn't want to do it anymore. So I've always just really loved doing things for myself and not waiting. I don't like waiting for somebody else to say, yes, we're going to let you do what you love doing. I just wanted to get out there and do it. So I've always done my own comedy shows. That's a show that got written up and got on TV. It was also you had Gary Goldman, if you remember. Gary Goldman, I didn't bring it up on the thing, but season 2 of Last Comic Standing was Gary's season. And the Laundromat Show, which is a comedy show in a laundromat that I ran for over 6 years, was a challenge segment on Last Comic Standing, and Gary was down there doing it. So he actually did my show in front of a pay toilet next to a set of dryers. So, I like to make exciting things happen, even when they look a little weird.
You mentioned your thank you website.
Yes.
Tell everybody what that was, please.
Okay, so mythankyouSite.com still exists. It's the old school blog. I don't know if you remember, I think it was like 2008, 2007, from 2007 to about 2011, you could make money blogging. And basically what it was is you picked a topic that you were interested in and you wrote as much as you could think of on it. And then people would, you'd put up AdSense, like Google code, and you would get paid every time somebody clicked on an ad. And to this day, that blog, like today, it made me $7. And it usually makes me on average about $43 a month. But at the time, it was making me anywhere from $4,000 to $9,000 a month. And it varied greatly. So it was a really nice living. It was a full-time living for a good 3 years. Like, I had friends who wrote screenplays and they were like, I can't believe you do that blog. And I was like, that blog has made me over $250,000, which is more than screenwriters do over its lifetime. And that's what I think is so exciting about self-publishing is, in order to have like a residual income from an investment, you have to have a lot of money. But writers have something better than money. They have the ability to create something out of nothing. And that something can actually give you like a residual income. Like, for instance, my books will make, and I'll just flat out say the numbers. I don't want to pretend to be a more successful person than I am. But if I'm a writer and I'm listening to this, and there's only a few of us here, I want to know the money. The money goes like this. It goes about $450 to around $1,500, max $2,000 so far, but I've got a new series coming out. So when I haven't put out a book in 2 years. So when I've got a nice promo or a new book release coming out, I'll do really well. But when you think about it in terms of what you have to pay to have, like, let's say a house or a building or something like that that's generating you that much income, you can see how it's a really nice way to get wealthy. So I'm really excited about like the new series I'm launching, because I've learned over time. I think I've published like 15 books, not including the short stories. And over time, I've realized, oh, this is where I made that mistake. This is where I made that mistake. And also, publishing moves so slowly, so you have so many ideas for books. It's fun to be able to not, like, to write as many as you can without worrying that they're not going to want this one.
What was your first book?
My published book, or my very first book?
Let's do both.
Okay, so my very first book was NaNoWriMo. I even wearing the shirt. I did NaNoWriMo 2012, and I finished a book called Hooker Booker, based on a time when I worked as a booker for an escort service. That book is on a hard drive that died somewhere. And I wrote it and I realized, hey, look, I can write a complete thing. And then I went, but not this thing. Like, nobody will ever see this book. Do you know what I mean? It's too grossly personal and not that funny or interesting. So that was the first thing I wrote. And then the first thing I ever published was the Lusted book 1, which still, right now it's free on Amazon. It's called Permafree. But that series still makes me money, even though it was published, a good 4 years ago. The last book in this series, rather, was published 4 years ago.
Okay. And you said you're working on one and you've got a new series coming out.
Yes.
Is this series, you have a series, so how many do you anticipate in the series? And do you look at this as a specific number of books?
Yeah. Okay. So what I realized on the first Lusted books was I put out a series with cliffhangers at the end, which annoys readers, but it sells you a lot of books. But the problem I had was you want to know if you always want to plan for a series, because it costs so much to market a book. If you sell somebody book 1, you want to be able to sell them 2, 3, 4, and 5. The great thing about some of the way people are putting out romance novels now is they're complete, but it's like a set of brothers, or like with the Mom and Christy mysteries, each mystery is self-contained. So I write them so you can start at any point, but I also write it so I can cut the series at any point if it's not selling. So this one, Bronson Billionaires, is slated to be 5 brothers, but maybe we only care about 2 brothers if nobody buys by book 3 or whatnot, or 3 of the brothers if nobody buys by book 3. But if people are really buying by book 5, why, Don? I think there's some cousins involved. I think we might make some cousins by book 4 or 5, because if I got to hit,
billionaires also. They're
all billionaires. There are way more billionaires and royalty in romance than there are in life.
Is this a sexy romance series? So is this going to have
Yes.
some steam to it?
Yeah, some sexy times, not as sexy as the original P.S. Sparks books, because those have been put in the erotica section, books 2 and 3, because
Hold,
of their content.
hold that thought, because I want to talk about that a little bit more, but I want to
Mhm.
take half a step back
Yes,
and ask you if and early in your career, when it came to the books, if you thought even for a moment of trying to go the traditional route
not for a
with
second.
an agent and a publisher and the whole 9 yards.
No,
Not even for a
never.
second.
Not even for a second. Just because at the time I needed money fast, and that was going to take too long. And I'd already made so much money on my blog. And by the time like publishing caught up, that blog wasn't as hot as it was. Do you know what I mean? Like I tried to sell a book based on my blog, but by the time I also had some health issues. And that's another great thing about having residual income is if you ever have health issues, it's nice to have money coming in no matter what.
And so you really approached this as an income.
As an income.
You weren't looking for high literature. You weren't looking to win awards. You were looking to write a story that people would enjoy and pay for and be interested in enough to buy your next book.
Right. And what's great about self-publishing is you don't need to sell as many books to make as much money. Like you can price your books cheaper than regular like books. Like you can charge it $2.99, $3.99, $4.99. But out of that, you make a good 68 to 70% of that money. So instead of like getting, 35 cents or $1 a copy on other books, you're making $2.07, $3, $4 per book. And so you can see how over time, that money really adds up. So you can also, if you have a very niche taste, like if there's a very particular type of romance or a very particular type of sci-fi, like I have friends that write alien invasion sci-fi, with basically tentacle
bug-eyed
porn.
monsters.
Yeah, exactly. So they want to mate, but it's a very niche section that you probably couldn't get published at a regular house, but they make 10, 15, 20,000 a month. And I do actually keep company with some romance authors. That's why I've planned my series more like theirs, that are making like 200,000 a month.
Those are insane numbers. I
like
can't
not 6-figure authors, 7-figure authors,
yeah.
millionaire a year in
self-published.
Self-published.
Just churning it out.
Yeah.
Interesting. You do a lot of cozy mysteries. That seems to be the largest number of your books I'm seeing here are the cozy mysteries. What is it about that particular genre that interests you? Why pursue that as opposed to others?
When I started with the Lusted, if you look at the reviews, I think what's Lusted 1, by the way, is free. Feel free to pick it up. And I think it'll be, because of the level of writer company that Don usually keeps, I think you'll be surprised. Okay, we're all writers here. Okay, so I'll just say it'll be a very big confidence booster for anyone who's here reading it, because you'll be like, what is this typo? What happened here? Like, I could write a better book. No offense. I won't be offended. Okay, it was my first book. I put it out there. But you're like, people are still reading this? But you will also see in the reviews, I was incredibly depressed at the time because I was sick when I wrote that book. And I revised some of the more depressing parts out of it, but they're literally reviews that say, the realistic depiction of depression in this book kind of bummed me out, so I didn't finish it. Like there's that kind of review in there. And but what I did notice is by book 2, 3, and 4, the plot got really good. So at the beginning part of my career, I was good at plot, but not as good at character. And romance readers will know character is everything in romance, but plot is a big portion of mystery. So I segued over to mystery, and this time, instead of basing any characters on me, which is a big mistake when you're depressed to have your lead female character have anxiety and depression issues realistically portrayed, because that's sexy. I switched over and I went, okay, when I do the Mom and Christy, who do I know that everybody loves? Oh, my mom. Also, I believe all moms are part detective, so it already fits. So I ruthlessly stole my mother and I made her solve mysteries. And then I actually force her to say nice things in the back of the book. Like I interview her at the end. And now she's just taken to saying, whatever you say, you're the writer. Just tell them I said it. I'll tell me what you told them I said. I was like, Mom, that's not okay. We're done with this series. So book 8 was the last one for now, because Mom's tired of my bull stuff.
What was her involvement? I mean, realistically in this, you were obviously doing the writing. Did she contribute to the project in any significant way other than just being your awesome mother?
Being my awesome mom and not suing me for like literally stealing almost all of her character traits and throwing them into a novel. And then she likes to write random things on Facebook that people don't fully understand, but they enjoy that she's there. And she gave me a recipe for mango cake that I send out to my newsletter for the first book, Mango Cake and Murder.
All right,
So,
you're going to have to give us that recipe so I can share it with everybody in town.
okay, absolutely.
Let's take a step back. You mentioned falling into Amazon jail
Yes.
with the Lusted series. As an educational experience for the rest of us, what did you do that got you in trouble, and what should we not do so we don't follow suit?
At the time that I published the books, I led books 2 and 3 with major sexy time scenes, which means that the look inside feature shows immediate, hot, steamy, sex. And avoid doing that. Do not have your preview, your first like 10% of the book, have that in it, because they need it to be able to be seen by like a wide variety of people. Now, also at the beginning, you just had to avoid certain words. Now they actually can tell how many, they have an algorithm or something, or maybe people, I don't know how they're doing it. But if a percentage of your book is more sexy times than it is plot, they actually have like some type of intelligence reading that. And so you'll notice that my books 1 and 4 are not in jail, which thank goodness, but books 2 and 3 are in jail. And it's because books 2 and 3 are shorter, and the percentage of sexy times to actual plot points is smaller. So what I would advise is also, just in general, longer books, they make you more money. But also, if you're going to have a lot of sexy times, make sure to have a significant amount of plot to, not actual hardcore sex scenes and sex clubs to keep you out of jail. And also, as we mentioned earlier in the pre-show, no man nipple on the cover, no nipple of any person or anything on the cover. No nipple, no nipple, no nipple.
Forget nipples.
Forget
nipples.
So
are those particular books no longer available through Amazon? Did they just basically remove them?
No, they're definitely available. What happens when you're put in Amazon like erotica jail is that if somebody were to Google like different keywords that you put into your keyword, there's like a little slot for your 7 sets of keywords, which I can give you some tips on later. That if they're Googling those words, Amazon typing in search, it won't appear in the search. Erotica stuff doesn't appear in search. However, you can see it. And luckily, book 1 isn't in that jail. So the book still sells through. It's just that books 2 and 3, I can't get out of the erotica category. Also, avoid the word lust. I'm afraid to update the book for typos, because the title of the book is Lusted, and lust is one of those trigger words. Lusted and any swear words in your description is one of those words that automatically flags you now. But because my book was put in before that, they seem to have not caught on. So I'm not touching that book.
So the algorithm essentially assumes that a title with the word lust in it is porn.
Correct. Or erotica, I should say, which eliminates you from the search.
Let's excuse me. Let's talk a little bit about The Secret Truth of Time.
My favorite book.
This is your time travel story. This is kind of a different project for you. Tell us how this whole thing came together, where the plot came from, and just what's the story behind that book? Okay, also self-published, right?
Also self-published. This is the book that I always wanted to write. Okay, this is the book that I didn't write for the money, and it shows because my mother, it's actually my mom's favorite book, and she gives it out to people in a retirement community. And she's like, it's like the only, and it's like, Mom, you don't give anybody any of the books that you star in? No, just the book that nobody else but my mom and it's my sister's favorite book too. But it's basically, the concept is a girl who collects like antique watches finds herself daydreaming about different time periods, and then she realizes that she's actually going back into time in those daydreams, and she finds out that she travels into the body of her mother as well as the body of her mother's killer. So she decides she wants to go back in time to kill the man who killed her mom.
I got to read that book.
It's it's the book that I really wanted. It's not in a series, and my cover, I thought it was sci-fi, but it turns out it's a little more urban fantasy. And it's got a little bit of a metaphysical type. There's a lot of reincarnation and different things like that about the nature of time travel. And it was really tough to plot. There's supposed to be a sequel, but time travel is really hard because you want to make sure that there aren't any major plot holes. And people who read science fiction are very, very smart, Don. They're very smart. So if you have a plot issue, they will write you. They will write you. And so
they will show up outside your house.
Yeah, romance readers will write you too. They'll help you correct all your typos. They're very nice people, but sci-fi people, they've got an edge to their intelligence, Don, that's a little intimidating, let's just say.
That story would make a great movie, I think.
I think so too.
But you chose to use a pseudonym with it. Why did you do that?
Oh, I just did C.M. Murphy just because I didn't want the branding, because in other words, like when somebody goes and they buy through all of your things, somebody who reads The Secret Truth of Time wouldn't necessarily be the same kind of person who'd want a Mom and Christy mystery, because The Secret Truth of Time is very densely plotted. The writing is less conversational, and there aren't a lot of jokes. The Mom and Christy mysteries have a lot of jokes. They're very light. And so I just didn't think that, I didn't want the reviews to really skew like, oh, this isn't anything like it. Although strangely enough, there are some people who've written both. So now it does appear under Christy Murphy, but it looks definitively different so that people aren't, wait, I thought this was going to be, where are the cute fart jokes and what happened to the cat? Do you know what I mean? Like there's no fart jokes or cat or recipes or anything in it.
I'm glad you took that part out.
Yeah,
it would have ruined everything. I want to take a half a step back, Christy. You mentioned a few minutes ago about writing when you were in a bad emotional place. This is something we talked to Gary Goldman about too. He's been very upfront about his own depression and issues, but I wanted to talk to you. You recognize that this was going on. You acknowledge it. What is your advice to writers, to people in this organization and elsewhere who may be trying to write while dealing with depression and anxiety and whatever other mental health issues they might have? How did you deal with it, and what advice would you offer others who may find themselves in the same place?
What I will say for me at the time, I was actually on disability for anxiety and depression. And I was also going through some serious health issues at the time. I will say for me, writing every day made me feel like my life wasn't slipping away. To this day, like I literally, even if I just write a few words, I have a calendar where I put like stickers every day that I write, to make sure that as long as I'm writing, I feel like I have a small bit of control, especially if it's in something that I plan to publish. It makes me feel like I'm moving forward, even though there are so many things in my mind that don't feel very organized. For me, when I write with anxiety or depression, and it's something that I've started to do without it, is I don't write from an outline. I don't want that pressure. I don't want to feel like I can't pivot or I can't change. I will say when you go back, particularly if you're writing, let's say, a romance, maybe look back into seeing if the character does suffer from anxiety and depression in the book, you don't want it to be heavy. Maybe take some of that out later. Do you know what I mean? Because I really paid for that. The character had a little bit of that in there. And I think if I would have just taken out some of the more descriptive parts, it wouldn't have bummed my audience out so much. But it was nice to see that I could describe my state of mind so clearly, that I still had those skills. But for me, I find not having the pressure of an outline worked really well for me. And also just allowing myself to enjoy the work and enjoy the small bit of control that I had over what was going on. And it actually helped. I feel like I wrote my way out of my anxiety and depression.
I was going to ask you if the writing process was cathartic for you, emotionally or psychologically, just kind of, but I mean, writing about your own personal issues, did that benefit you?
It's interesting because I've had different bouts. And one of the ways that I got out of it the first time was actually I decided to do my thank you site because I was so down, because it was such an upbeat topic. So I went the other way the first time, and that was very successful for me, because gratitude is a really great way to help sort of curb some of my natural, oh yeah, this is how it's going to go, just like right down the toilet, like that kind of thinking where I could just see the patterns on why everything's going wrong, and taking a moment to like, people would write to me and say, could you write a thank you note for insert this? And so in that way, you have to pretend, oh, okay, I received a wooden bowl for my wedding. And I would literally being grateful and then writing a gratitude list and writing about that kept my mind forward. I will say that when I was writing the romance novel, I didn't intentionally write the depressing part in there. I just figured I'd give that character that because I knew so much about it. But for me, it was the dream of being in love that actually, I didn't fall in love until I was 42, till well after these books came out. And now my romance writing is so much better because there's that inherent everything is doomed, why bother feeling. But I will say for me, I don't know if writing about the depression itself helped me as much as just writing in general, feeling like I was doing something productive, that I was still good for something, because I was asked to leave my job, Don, at the time, my job at the PI firm. So no more investigating frozen food names for me. I was just like, really, I'm not qualified to call up strangers and lie about the trademark on a frozen food. What am I coming to? And then the thing that saved me was, I'm a fantastic novelist who writes incredibly depressing romances. But it really did work.
Well, I want to talk about how you approach a new book project.
Okay.
How do you, where do you find inspiration and how do you plot your stories?
It's really interesting because I've been getting into, there's a lady named Becca Syme, Syme is her last name, and she has this philosophy. It's called Strengths for Writers. And basically different writers have different ways of doing things. And she just talks about how to embrace your strengths. So I want to preface this by, this is what works for me, but there's some other writers that I know that are really great with outlines, really great with regimented thinking. But for me, I have a tendency to want to, I've got a million ideas. Okay, I'm flaky. Let's just go put it that way. We'll call it flaky. So for me, I find that if I'm working on two books at once, two different types of books at once, if I'm stuck with one book, I can write another. And I used to always say I was going to outline, but basically my outlines are like, this is what the character names are, and this is what the title is going to be that I change later, and these are what the characters are about, and this is vaguely where we're going. When I write a cozy mystery, there's an easy way to do it that I'll just share quickly if anybody wants to write cozies. And it goes like this. You figure out who your suspects are, you figure out how the person dies. Every single suspect has a secret. One of the secrets is they're a murderer. And that's how you keep it. So there's always something that they're sharing. And then it's literally just going from clue to clue, red herring. The red herring is, oh, that secret was that she was cheating on her husband. It's not that she killed her brother. Do you know what I mean? It's always something like that. And so the shorter the book, the tighter it is. The longer the book, the more suspect you have. So I always did 4 suspects, 3 that we're going to go into, and 1 is the murderer. If you want a longer book, you drop a second body in the second point. So I plot, and the romances, I just decide who's who, why they're going to be apart, and of course we know it ends happily ever after.
That's simple.
That's simple.
This is a process that you devised yourself.
I think so, but I'm pretty sure that that's how they all go. I believe everyone, they live happily ever after. In every cozy mystery, there are suspects and there are, there's a killer. So, but I like to know how they died. Like I always know how they died before I start. But sometimes if you fix it, it's really amazing how much in a mystery, you'd think it would be hard to plot. But when later you're like, oh, you could drop in like in 2 sentences, a lot of really great clues. And it just really makes it flow. But I find I'm very good with plot and I'm getting better with character all the time.
How long are your books on average?
So the cozy mysteries, and this is one of the biggest mistakes I make, so I'm going to let you learn from me. Do not, if you're going into Kindle Unlimited, which is the fastest, easiest way to go, especially when you're starting, you get paid per page read now. So my books are only 25 to 40,000 words on the Mom and Christy mysteries. The Lusted books are, I think the first one's about 56,000. I think the last one's about 64,000, but the middle 2 are, I think, in more like the 45,000 range. But if you really want to make money, it takes a lot to market a book. You might as well get more per page read and you can charge more if the book is longer. So I recommend a book no shorter than 65,000 words, preferably closer to the 85,000 word mark.
Excellent. Now let's talk about promotion a little bit, because
yes,
as a self-published, you know how difficult it is to get your book up to the point where people can see it. There's just so much competition, such a huge volume of self-published work out there that it's really hard to get people to recognize your new book. So what do you do? What tricks do you have? What tips can you share to help people raise the visibility of their self-published projects?
Okay, so this only works if one, write in a series. Always write in a series. It costs so much money now to get your book done. It's easier to sell book two, or at least write in a tight niche at the beginning, which I have a hard time with, which is why I have pen names. So one of the easiest ways to do it is if you only have one book and it's nonfiction and it's a longer book, I would enroll it in Kindle Unlimited and do their freebie promotion. You get 5 days per 90. You only have to be logged in exclusive to Kindle Unlimited for 90 days at a time. So you're never fully locked in. And if you have some reason that you really want to get out, you can write to them and say, get me out now. And you usually have a really good time of it. The reason why I like being in Kindle Unlimited, especially when you start, is it's overwhelming how many things you have to do. So when you go into Kindle Unlimited, every time somebody borrows, it increases your rank just as if they bought it. But what you get with those free days is if you do a 2-day promotion, one of a freebie, there's a thing, I don't know if you've ever been shopping in Amazon, but they say people who bought this book also bought these, right?
Mhm.
So you buy a couple of newsletter ads in other people's newsletter. I love Freebooksy. It's FRE. I'm going to actually just type it into the chat. Freebooksy.com has done tremendous things for me. Freebooksy will advertise to like 16,000, 30,000 people who specifically check off the different genres you want. Why this is important. If somebody is specifically subscribed to the steamy romance Freebooksies, when you pay $85 to $130, some of them are cheaper, like sci-fi, they have all the genres, including nonfiction. When they subscribe to that, it goes out to all their newsletters. They click on it. It's the same people who bought all of your competitors. So your also bots are populated with good books that are just like it. So not only do your books get a boost, like book one gets a boost and maybe they'll buy book two or book three. More importantly, people who are in Kindle Unlimited sometimes forget to click the for free and they just click the read for free. So you're getting the page reads on that. So your money goes up. And then afterwards, you get the residual advertising of having your book in other people's also bots. I'll give you an example. So I've spent a lot of time building a newsletter list from my Mom and Christy Cozy Mysteries. Just yesterday, Monday and Tuesday, I put out one. Actually, I used a thing. It's on Fiverr, and the guy is called BK. I'm spilling all the tea. I'm literally telling you exactly how I do it.
We appreciate it.
So I put it into the chat, but it's B Nights, and it's Nights with a K. So it's like BK Nights, depending on which nights you're using. And he's in Fiverr. Always check the box that says newsletter. So it's not the $5 one, it's the $10 one. I did my newsletter on day one. Day two, I did the BK Nights. I got to number 80 in the Amazon free store, which made me number one in dark humor, American humor, number 4 in cozy mysteries, number 16 in all of mysteries, with just $12 in my newsletter list. And after that, now sales are up today on a book that's been out over 3 years. And that's what I love about being a self-published author, is that I can control my sales. So if I'm not having, I didn't publish a book for 2 years, but I was still making $400, $500 a month, because I would just spend $10 here or $80 there, mark one of my books for free, get it up there in the listing so that people started knowing who I was, because there's always more readers. And then from there, it would just more and more books would sell in that series. And there's tons of places like BK Nights. There's a place called Fussy Librarian. There's a bunch of different newsletters that you can use for this. And it's a great way to goose your sales. The thing that you don't want to do, that everybody makes, is they think it used to be, if you wanted to be number one, you'd think you'd have everybody buy in the first hour. Okay. Instead of having everybody buy in the first hour, what Amazon's looking for is a gradual step up. So the first day you have one little ad, and then the second day you like say if you're doing a 4-day promo or a 2-day, you stack the ads, because the algorithm, what it does to rank you is it takes part of yesterday's, like half of yesterday's and all of today's sales. And then on the third day, they take half of the day before and a quarter of the day before. So if you stagger so that on the last day, your biggest ads or the most of your newsletter is happening, you're going to raise up higher instead of burning high and then burning out. So they call it an ad stack. And so if you just like Google, ad stacking, self-publishing, you'll see a lot of things like that. But it's a really great way. I've actually gotten on, I did a sale on Marshmallows and Murder, and I stacked a bunch of ads, and I actually got to be, I think I got into the top 20 of all books in literature and fiction for Marshmallows and Murder the very first time I put it on a freebie. And then that month I was so happy because I spent about $200 in advertising, but that month I made 900, and then the next month I had like 998. I was like, why couldn't it be 1,000? But it was like 998. But off of like a $200 investment. And so that's what I love about being an indie publisher, is that if you really do want to make more money and you want to generate something, you have some control.
Are your books available in print editions or only e-editions?
Okay, so I actually do my publishing. I have, so yeah, so I have the first 3 books in print. And usually the reason why I did it in the first 3 books, and I need to do it in the other ones, is if you have your print books available for like $14.95 or $9.95, it makes your Kindle Unlimited or your Kindle $2.99 or $3.99 book look like an incredible bargain. Also, if your book's shorter and you make it in bigger type, and I call it a large print book, you can have Amazon say it's a 156-page book when it's only 25,000 words. And the reason why you want to do that is there's certain companies like BookBub, which is the granddaddy. I'm typing it in the chat. It's the granddaddy of places to advertise, but they're very selective. So it's almost like you won a lottery ticket if you get a BookBub ad. Your book has to be a minimum of 150 pages to get one of their ads. If it's fiction, for nonfiction, it's 100 pages. But yes, and I also put out, like, you could, and I did this through print on demand, through KDP, print on demand, costs you nothing. You just have to format the book in a PDF. And then from there, it's like you could do all kinds of stuff. I did a gratitude journal for my thank you site, which is just empty pages. And I even did a Cussing Animals coloring book. Ta-da! But it's like a real printed thing because I wanted it for some friends that I thought was funny, and it was a trend that was starting to happen on Amazon. So you could publish a lot of what they call low content publishing, particularly if you're a person who writes, if you write nonfiction and you're putting out a book anyway, if you put out a workbook with it, you'll make a lot of extra money for a lot less work. You just have it nicely formatted. If you're good with formatting, that's great. If not, you can get somebody off of Fiverr to put that PDF for you. And it's a great way to double your income.
That's a great.
What was the name of that PDF publishing?
Oh, it's KDP, Print on Demand Publishing. Kindle Direct Publishing. It's literally where it's in the exact same window if you sign up for kdp.amazon.com, putting it in the chat.
Is that what CreateSpace was?
It's what CreateSpace was before Amazon bought them. But what's great is your books, now that they're with Amazon, although, okay, we'll corporate evil we'll set aside for now. It's part of Prime. So people get free shipping if they're an Amazon thing, which is something that you can't get if you do it a different way. So, and it's always marked as in stock.
Do you publish outside of Amazon to any degree, or is that almost exclusively your platform right now?
I publish, when I wanted to make some books, what I call perma-free, Amazon will not make a book free for forever, but they will price rate. They will price match to other places. So I have it published on, I have Mango Cake and Murder Book 1 published on Google Books, iBooks, Barnes & Noble, and I also have expanded distribution for my paperbacks. So you can get those at Barnes & Noble and Kobo and a bunch of other places like that. And the company that I use for that is called Draft 2 Digital. And for those of you who don't want to buy a program like Vellum, and I put it in the chat, Draft 2 Digital will actually format your book for free. So you don't even have to spend the money doing that. And so
Yes, I love them.
Yes. Draft 2 Digital. I use a I use a program called Vellum because it's very fast and I just like it to be right on my computer. But Draft 2 Digital will give you a really beautiful cover. And I think they now are doing paperbacks. Does anybody remember if they do paperbacks? You might want to double check. They might format your paperback for you.
Christy, how important are reader reviews to your sales?
Incredibly important. It's amazing.
How do you engage your readers? Let me put it that way. Obviously, positive reviews sell books. What else do you do to engage with your readers to make them want more?
So I rely very heavily on my newsletters. So for instance, the Mom and Christy Cozy newsletter list is about 5,200 right now. And Pia Sparks, I don't remember what it's at, but I'm really working hard to build that list. And what I do is I give them the mango cake recipe and I let them know when all the freebies are happening. And the way I build that list and communicate with my readers is in the back of every book, of course, I have a link so that they can sign up. Don't ever publish a book without a link in the back. Once somebody's bought one of your books, you want to be able to contact them over and over and over again to sell more of your books. And what's great about that also is if any particular publisher starts to screw you, you at least have contact with your readers. You're not reliant on like Amazon to do that. And there's a really great company that I love to use, and I'm putting them in here. I don't get paid by any of these people. You'll notice these aren't like, I use a company called Book Funnel. That's BOOK funnel, FUNNEL .com. And what they do is in exchange for your email address, they will deliver one of my books for free to you. And it's usually Mango Cake and Murder. But you can do other things with that, like give them a free map. Like if you do sci-fi or fantasy, a lot of readers who love your book are going to want like a free map. They'll distribute that PDF for you. Because the hard thing about giving somebody a book for free is that they don't know how to get it on their Kindle or their iPhone, and then you become this help desk and it's hell. So Book Funnel takes care of that for you. In addition, what they do is they allow you to hook up with other authors who already have a newsletter, and they say, okay, all 20 of us are going to give away books in the same genre. Like I'm sponsoring what they call the Spring Steamy Romance promo. And this promo has right now about 23 writers, all giving away a free full romance. And what we do is we send out a link to our current newsletter. And everybody in the promo does it. They even have a tracking link. So anybody who doesn't, I kick out. And so we send them all the books, and then everybody gets to shop for free books. And so when somebody picks up your free book, you get like so-and-so's writer. What makes that even better is when that person's on your list, when later you sell them your subsequent books, this is a person who's buying other romance writers in your genre. So you're also bots in the different stores still look tight and good. Because the worst thing you want to do, you guys are all writers, so you're going to know this. So you're writing a book, right? And you're putting your life into this book. And everybody's like, I can't wait to buy your book. I can't wait to buy your book until your book comes out. And then nobody buys it. Like, you're like, no, I can see it. And you haven't bought any of my books, people. You know what's great about this is you actually don't want them buying your books on the first week that it's open. Because unless your family happens to read strictly your genre, they're screwing up your also bots with Amazon, or even with Barnes and Noble. And so you're going to get all these weird also bots from, like, let's say, I don't know, your cousin who wrote a book, or like they love self-help or something. And you're like, what is this? Like literally the algorithm, which is just a machine, doesn't know what to do with it. So what I love about like the concept of like playing to the algorithm is I never have to beg a family member to buy a book again, because they're ruining the long-term effect of that anyway. So that's
Christy,
a lot of me blathering.
Who are your writing influences, your inspirations? Who's on your bookshelf?
Okay, so I read a lot of nonfiction right now, and because I have some cluttering issues, I now only have digital, because my thing is now I used to watch Hoarders reruns and just throw things away just because Ghost of Christmas Future. So, but who's on my Kindle? I read a lot of Kurt Vonnegut, and I read a lot of just other writers in my genre, when I'm trying to write more. And I'm a big Amy Tan fan as well. You'll notice an abundance of Filipino people in my books because I'm half Filipino. And I love to make Filipino mom jokes, and it's a niche that I hold pretty tight. Me and Linda Berry, who I also love.
What have you learned, though, from other writers? Is there any specifics to the art and craft of writing itself that you feel you improved on because of what you learned from another writer?
Okay, so what I really liked about Amy Tan, and actually I have one reviewer who caught it, is she really, when I was looking to get better at character, she really leaned on the inner dynamics of like the mother-daughter relationship. And somebody actually caught it in one of my Christy. It's like the only review. I mean, I like a lot of the reviews that I actually have for those books, but that review was like, wow, this person literally named off all my writers in her review. And so for me, Amy Tan taught me a lot about character. When I really wanted to know more about character and how to reveal character without just saying so-and-so is so-and-so, she really does a great job of showing you who the person is by how they relate to another person that they're working with. So in other words, like you'll notice big mother-daughter stuff in the Mom and Christy mysteries, of course, but you'll see a lot of Amy Tan influence if you look close enough. Also, she's Asian.
Christy, this has been 10 kinds of fun. I'm so glad you could join us this evening. I'd like to conclude our talk, and then I know there are some questions from some people in the audience, but I wanted to conclude by asking, and you've shared a tremendous amount already, but what advice, any additional advice you might have to other writers who might be thinking of going the self-publishing route, based on your experiences, and what have you learned that might benefit others?
One of the things I've learned is there's a type of writer who's going to do really well self-publishing, and that's somebody who really is interested in the business of it, somebody who's really excited by it. I find that the initial excitement wanes, and you really do need a couple of books. Actually, any book can be a big hit on its own. There's always that lottery winning, but mostly you need a lot of books to make it happen. And so I found that when you're thinking about going into self-publishing, make sure that you're really excited about the technology, and don't be so quick to spend money on things like somebody else who's going to format your book, because you want to be able to bring the book back and add new links in the back and do all kinds of things like that. And I've seen a lot of people just use Fiverr or use a friend, and they spend like thousands of dollars on their first book. I would say if you're going to get into self-publishing and you really want to know, find a short story that you've written and just publish it, not for the sake that you're going to make tons of money, but for the sake that you can see the process as it's happening. And from there, you can decide whether or not it's for you, because a lot of people don't enjoy that. And it's one of the reasons why I want to go into publishing, because if I can find people who've written, it does take a long time to build a major mailing list. And I'm kind of mad that publishers kind of always want you to have a bunch of followers. If you have a bunch of followers, you don't need a publisher. You can self-publish it yourself. But if you don't want to do any of it, do you know what I mean? It's like, if you write a cozy mystery, talk to me, because I'll put it out for you and do all the work, because I already do it for my own books. So it's nice and easy.
That is awesome. I think we do have some questions. Rita, were you keeping track?
We don't have any questions right now.
And I think I saw one. I think Hannah was wondering about the issues of theft or people just stealing your work online. Can you talk a bit about that, Christy? What do you do to protect yourself?
I write another book. It is so hard to protect yourself. I don't even put DRM on my books because it just gets too many complaints.
What's DRM?
It's like the digital rights management thing that they put to help protect your book, but scammers know how to get around it anyway. And some people who change Kindles end up being really sad that they can't figure out how to get your book on. Especially my readers are they're older women mostly. They're women my age and older. So my email address is christymurphywriter@gmail.com. And I'm putting it in the chat. Somebody just put that in there. So for me, there's different companies you can use, and you could do a DMC takedown if somebody's like distributing your book. For me personally, if you're stealing my book and giving it away, and Neil Gaiman did a really interesting study on this, where he let some of his books be pirated and stolen, and saw that over time it sold him more books. So I spend a lot of time giving away books for free. So if you want to steal it, go ahead. Because if you're reading it and you want it that bad, you're going to share it with everybody in the world, and I get that advertising for free, I'll make it up on the next book, because people who are going to buy books.
And I do the Google with the that and my name, and then that with my book title, and I'll get emails saying, and it'll be some spot, download for free. And it's a book that's 4 or 5 years old. I don't care at this point. Let them do it, because all of a sudden the next book in that series sold. So where did that come from? So you just can't worry about it. It's not enough.
Yeah.
It's too much of a thing. I've tried a couple of those DCM takedowns, and it's
not worth it.
It's really not.
Yeah.
I find the futility of it affects my mental health so greatly that it's not worth the time. I can write another book.
Does anyone else have any questions for Christy? Rebecca?
Yes. So Christy, sorry, I had trouble with the mute button. How frequently do you advertise on the promo sites? And do you do any pay-per-click advertising through Amazon, Facebook, BookBub, that sort of thing?
Yes, I do. I do pay-per-click advertising on Facebook, Amazon, as well as BookBub. I will say that I'm just getting into more of it now. Mark Dawson of
Mhm.
the self-publishing podcast has a really great course that I've purchased. It's pretty pricey, but there's also some really great books on Amazon that talk about it. I do think the BookBub pay-per-click ads are actually pretty great, and you can get some clicks at like 23 and 22 cents that I think are really nice. I find it only pays if you have a lot of books in that series, and I usually push those to my perma-free books. Or if I'm launching a book and I just want to try and get it as high as possible, I'll do more pay-per-click, and I will do that for my next PS Sparks. And the greatest way, just really quick, if you want to do pay-per-click on Amazon, use their Amazon ads. The cheapest ones seem to be, for me, and it could vary for different genres, is to target other authors in your genre. It also helps your also bots, but there are less people, and the more obscure the author is, the cheaper you're going to get it. So you just spend your whole day on Amazon looking through, finding also bots of different popular authors, and like kind of look at the cover, read the inside. I just look at the cover, to be honest. And then I just target them, and then you just monitor those ads, and you can really do it with $2 to $3 a day. And then you scale up very slowly. Don't scale up super fast because your clicks start costing way more money. Make sure to click the button that says dynamic pricing down only. Do not let them dynamic price up. Your money will be spent so fast. And always have a limit at the top so that Amazon doesn't go crazy and charge your card like $100 in a day.
Are
Okay.
there any websites you would recommend, Christy, for aspiring self-published writers? Is there any sites that benefited you?
Yes, absolutely. There's if you're on Facebook, the 20 books to 50K Facebook group is very valuable. It's an amazing group, particularly if you intend to publish many books. So 20 books to 50K. I also really like the self-publishing podcast and Mark Dawson's, and he's got a group, and he also has a YouTube channel. And I'm a big fan for craft. Of course, I like literally the podcast. What is the podcast name? 5 minutes because we're in a hurry. Does anybody writing excuses? I love writing excuses for craft. I literally can rattle off the intro. And if you're also looking to become more prolific and write faster, which I think is a real benefit in self-publishing, Becca Syme has the Write Faster Academy. Just look up Becca Syme, and I'm going to put her name in here. And honestly, my word counts jumped from maybe a 500 word day to a 3,000, 5,000. I have had 10,000 word days, but that's only on a deadline when I'm in a dead panic. But just naturally, like, my word counts jumped tremendously by thousands by listening to some of the tips that she has. And she has a lot of free information on YouTube. And then I think she's got a Patreon that you can pay $1 to see or whatever. So she's a great person that I think if you want to learn how to write more quickly, Becca Syme is somebody I would definitely check out.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Does anyone else have any questions for Christy? Anything else? Christy, you want to hang with us? We got a couple more fun things to do. You want to hang with us for a few more minutes?
Yes, I'm
Awesome.
so busy during the pandemic.
Well,
I'm procrastinating
you
reading
gave us
right now.
some absolutely incredible information and insight on self-publishing, and we really, really, really appreciate it.